Chapter 1. The House That Ate Smiles. If you asked people in Owerri who Daniel Okori was, they would say his name the way people say the name of a man who owns the road. The kind of man who didn't just enter a place, he announced himself without speaking. The kind of man whose laugh was louder than other people's plans. He wore suits that looked like they were stitched with arrogance, drove cars that shone like they were allergic to dust, and shook hands like the world owed him interest. He had a house on a hill, not a home, a house. Glass windows, white walls, a gate tall enough to discourage prayer. When you stood outside it, you felt small, even if you came with confidence. The house didn't welcome people. It measured them, and inside it lived Ifunanya, the kind of woman who had mastered the skill of folding herself into smaller shapes so she wouldn't inconvenience the room. She was beautiful in a way that didn't beg for attention. Smooth brown skin, soft eyes, full lips that rarely smiled anymore. People said she was lucky. They said it with envy. They didn't know that luck in that house came with bruises you couldn't photograph. The marriage had started like a movie. Daniel had met her when he was still building himself. She was the calm he leaned on, the steady hand, the voice that reminded him he was human when money hadn't yet turned him into a statue. He used to call her my prayer that God answered. Then his business grew. One contract became three. Three became a company. The company became the kind people mentioned at weddings when they wanted to show they knew important names. And Daniel became a different man, the kind wealth breeds when it enters a heart with no humility to greet it. The first change was small, a look that lingered too long on his phone screen, a smile he didn't share, a late night that didn't come with apologies. The second change was his mother. Madame Gloria Okorie moved into the house like she owned it, and with her came a new air, thick, judgmental, watchful. She didn't ask Ifunanya how she was doing. She asked her when she would give her son an heir. At first, Ifunanya tried to laugh it away. "Mama, it will happen," she would say softly. But Madame Gloria's eyes were always hard, always cold, as if her patience was a debt collecting interest. "It will happen," she would repeat, twisting her mouth. "You people have been married 8 years. How long does a woman take to do what she was born to do?" Ifunanya would swallow her shame like food without salt. Daniel would sit there and act like he didn't hear, staring at his phone, nodding at messages, laughing at jokes from men who called him boss like it was worship. Then one day, it was no longer just questions. It became insult. It became prophecy spoken with wicked certainty. That afternoon, Ifunanya was in the kitchen stirring soup. The aroma of uziza and crayfish floated around the house, warm and inviting, but warmth never lasted long in that place. Madame Gloria walked in, eyes sharp. "I saw your friend at church today," she said. Ifunanya turned, respectful. "Which one, Mama?" "The one that married after you," Madame Gloria replied, leaning against the counter as if she came to watch a show. "She is pregnant again, second child." Ifunanya's hand paused mid-stir. "That is good news," she said carefully. Madame Gloria nodded slowly, then smiled. It wasn't the kind of smile that shared joy. It was the kind that cut. "Look at that. Women are delivering like rain season. Only you are dry ground." Ifunanya felt the words land inside her like stones. "Mama," Madame Gloria waved her off. "Do not call me Mama with that mouth. I am mama to mothers. Ifunanya's throat tightened. She tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out clean. I am trying, she whispered. Madame Gloria's voice rose like a whip. Trying? Are you the first woman to ever try? Or you think my son married you to decorate the sitting room? At that moment, Daniel walked in, smelling of expensive cologne and impatience. He glanced at them like he was passing a billboard. What's going on? He asked, not because he cared, but because noise in his house annoyed him. Madame Gloria didn't even look at him. Ask your wife. Ask her why she has turned your name into an empty pot. Daniel's eyes cut to Ifunanya. What did you do? What did you do? Not what happened. Not are you okay? Ifunanya stared at him. Something inside her shifted. It wasn't anger. It was the quiet realization that she had been alone in this marriage for a long time. I didn't do anything, she said softly. Mama is just upset. Daniel's jaw tightened. And you just stand there? You don't fix the problem? You don't think? Fix the problem, as if her body was a leaking pipe and she was too lazy to tighten it. That night, Ifunanya slept facing the wall, eyes open, listening to the house breathe. It made small sounds the way big spaces do, wind against glass, pipes whispering, distant hum of a generator. She thought about hospitals. She thought about tests. She thought about prayer sessions with women who shouted Amen until their voices cracked, then looked at her belly with pity when nothing happened. She thought about all the nights she cried into her pillow while Daniel slept like a man who believed he was blameless. By morning, she had decided something. If the marriage was turning into a courtroom, she would at least come with evidence. She booked an appointment at a private clinic across town. When she told Daniel, he laughed like she had told him a joke. Go and do your tests, he said, so they will confirm what we already know. Ifunanya's hands trembled. And you? Will you test too? Daniel's face changed immediately. What kind of question is that? A normal question, she said, forcing her voice to stay steady. We are both... He cut her off with a sharp laugh. Don't be stupid, Ifunanya. Men don't have problems like that. The confidence in his voice was frightening. It wasn't confidence built on facts. It was confidence built on ego. She stared at him, and for the first time, she saw how dangerous pride could be when it wore a human face. On the day of the appointment, she went alone. The clinic smelled like disinfectant and secrets. The doctor was polite. The nurses were gentle. For the first time in years, someone spoke to her like she was a person, not a malfunction. They took blood. They did scans. They asked questions kindly. And then they told her to come back in 2 days. Those 2 days were torture. She couldn't eat properly. Her heart would race randomly like it was running from something invisible. She wanted to tell Amara, her best friend, but shame locked her mouth. When the results day came, she sat in the doctor's office, fingers twisting together. Dr. Nwafor adjusted his glasses and smiled, warm and calm. Mrs. Okori, he said, your results are normal. Ifunanya blinked. Normal? Yes, he repeated. Your reproductive health is fine. Your hormones are balanced. Your system is functioning well. The room tilted slightly. She didn't know whether to cry or laugh. So, I'm not... She couldn't finish. Dr. Nwafor's tone softened. You are not the problem. The words hit her like thunder. All the years, The insults, the nights of self-hatred, the silent apologizing for something she didn't do. Her eyes filled. "What does that mean?" she whispered. "It means," the doctor said carefully, "that if pregnancy did not occur in 8 years, your husband should also be tested." Ifunanya left the clinic holding her handbag like it was the only thing keeping her from floating away. When she got home, Daniel was in the living room, feet up, scrolling on his phone. Madame Gloria was on the sofa, like a judge waiting for a verdict. Daniel didn't look up. So, what did they say? Ifunanya swallowed. They said, "I'm fine." Madame Gloria's eyes narrowed. Daniel finally looked up, irritation flickering. "Fine, then why no child?" Ifunanya's heart pounded. This was it. The moment truth would either save her or destroy what little peace she had left. "The doctor said, you should test too." The silence that followed was heavy. Then Daniel laughed. Not a normal laugh, a bitter one that sounded like disrespect in human form. He stood up slowly, phone still in his hand, eyes hard. "You're accusing me now." "I'm not accusing you," she said, voice shaking. "I'm asking you to confirm, that's all." Madame Gloria stood too, rage igniting her face. "You want to disgrace my son? You want to turn him into a joke?" Ifunanya backed up a step. Daniel walked closer, lowering his voice. "Listen carefully. I will not go for any test. I am not the one with the issue. You are just trying to escape blame." The words came with a finality that felt like a door locking. Ifunanya's throat tightened. She wanted to scream, but she didn't, because she already knew the kind of man Daniel had become. And she knew, deep down, that if she pushed this truth too hard, this house would chew her up and spit her into the street. Still, she raised her eyes and said the quiet sentence that would start a war. "Then I will not be your scapegoat anymore." Daniel's face changed. Not confusion, not regret. Something darker. And Ifunanya realized, too late, that she had just lit the match in a house filled with petrol. If you want, I'll continue with Chapter 2 next, same intensity, where Daniel begins the public humiliation and Ifunanya learns the first rule of survival: never beg a proud man to be fair. Chapter 2. A man who needed a scapegoat. The problem with pride is that it does not explode immediately. It ferments. After Ifunanya asked Daniel to get tested, the house changed its language. Doors closed harder, silence lasted longer, even the air felt offended. Daniel did not shout that night. That was what scared her most. He ate his food quietly, scrolling through his phone, nodding at messages that made him smile the way he used to smile at her years ago. When she spoke, he answered with sounds instead of words. When she moved close, he shifted slightly, as if distance was now a rule. Madame Gloria watched everything with the satisfaction of a woman who believed war had finally been declared. The next morning, Daniel left early without saying goodbye. By noon, the first rumor arrived. Ifunanya heard it from the house help, a young girl who tried too hard to pretend she hadn't heard anything. "Madam," the girl said hesitantly, "they are saying, Sir told his friends you refused to cooperate." Ifunanya frowned. "Cooperate how?" The girl swallowed. "That you don't want peace, that you are making accusations." Ifunanya's chest tightened. By evening, the rumor had grown teeth. Daniel returned home with two friends in tow, loud, confident men who carried beer and opinions with equal enthusiasm. They laughed in the living room like it was a bar, not a marriage slowly bleeding out. Ifunanya stayed in the bedroom, hoping the noise would pass. It didn't. Daniel called her name, sharp and public. "Ifunanya, come here." She stepped into the living room slowly. Three men sat there, legs crossed, bottles sweating in their hands. Madame Gloria stood behind them like a judge who had already reached a verdict. Daniel gestured toward her. "Tell him what you told me yesterday." Her mouth went dry. "This is not a conversation for guests." One of the men laughed. "Guests? We are family friends." Daniel leaned forward. "Tell them." Ifunanya's heart pounded. "I said we should both get tested, that's all." The room erupted. One man shook his head. Ah, this is how it starts. Women like this will drag your name through the mud." Madame Gloria clicked her tongue. "I warned you. She wants to destroy you before you destroy her." Ifunanya felt like the floor was dissolving beneath her. Daniel stood up. "Do you know what people will say if this nonsense spreads? That I'm less of a man? That I can't produce?" "I never said that," she whispered. "But you implied it," he snapped, "and implication is enough to kill reputation." She looked at him, really looked at him, and finally understood. This was never about truth. This was about image. Daniel needed someone to blame, and she was convenient. That night, he moved into the guest room. 2 days later, he stopped coming home entirely. Ifunanya learned through whispers that he was staying at a hotel, that he had told people the marriage was under review, that he was tired of her emotional instability. Emotional instability. The phrase spread like wildfire. At church, women stopped sitting beside her. At the market, greetings became shorter. Madame Gloria made sure of it. She called relatives loudly. She cried dramatically. She told stories with just enough truth to sound believable and just enough lies to make Ifunanya the villain. "She wants to turn my son into a laughing stock. She cannot give birth, and now she wants to shift blame. She's trying to manipulate him with fake medical stories." Ifunanya watched her reputation collapse without witnesses. She wanted to fight, but something deep inside her knew this wasn't a fight she could win in that house. The final blow came on a Thursday evening. Daniel returned home unexpectedly. He didn't greet her. He didn't sit. He stood in the middle of the living room like a man delivering a sentence. "I've spoken to my lawyer," he said. Her breath caught. "About what?" "This marriage." Madame Gloria appeared instantly, like she had been waiting behind the door. "It is time," the older woman said. "We cannot continue this embarrassment." Ifunanya's knees weakened. "Embarrassment?" Daniel's voice was cold. "You made it public." She laughed, a small broken sound. "You brought strangers into our home and made it public." He waved that away. "Enough. I'm done." Something snapped inside her. "Done with what?" she asked quietly. "With truth? With responsibility?" He stared at her like she was something unpleasant. "With excuses, with delays, with waiting for a miracle that clearly isn't coming." Her voice trembled. We can still try. We can go together. We can. No, he cut in sharply. I will not let you ruin my future. Madame Gloria folded her arms. Pack your things. The words felt unreal. Tonight? Ifunanya asked. Yes, Daniel said. You will leave this house tonight. The world tilted. Daniel, she whispered, tears streaming freely now. I stood by you when you had nothing. I believed in you when no one else did. He didn't blink, and I've paid for it. That was when she knew. She was no longer his wife. She was an inconvenience. She walked into the bedroom like someone attending her own funeral. Her hands shook as she opened the wardrobe. Expensive dresses stared back at her like strangers. Jewelry she once loved now felt like borrowed lies. She packed only what she could carry. One bag. Madame Gloria watched from the doorway. Do not take anything you didn't come with, she said. Ifunanya didn't argue. When she returned to the living room, bag in hand, Daniel was already on his phone. Call the gate, he said without looking up. The gate opened. The night swallowed her. She stepped outside barefoot, bag cutting into her palm, heart pounding like it was trying to escape her body. No car followed her. No apology chased her. The house closed its gate behind her with a metallic finality. Ifunanya stood there for a moment, stunned. Then she walked down the hill, past street lights that didn't care, past houses that slept peacefully, past her old life. She didn't know where she was going. She only knew one thing. The man she loved had chosen pride over truth, and she had just been sacrificed to protect his ego. Chapter 3. When the world turns its back. Ifunanya did not cry immediately. That surprised her. She walked for a long time before the tears came, feet aching, chest tight, the night air biting her skin like it was angry with her too. The road sloped downward from the hill where Daniel's house stood, and with every step she felt as though she was descending, not just physically, but into something deeper and colder. The city did not notice her fall. Cars passed, headlights flashing briefly across her face before moving on. Laughter spilled from a nearby bar. Somewhere, a generator coughed to life. Life continued loud and indifferent, as if nothing important had just been taken from her. Her phone buzzed once. She stopped walking and looked at the screen, heart leaping foolishly. Daniel! For half a second, hope tried to resurrect itself. Then she opened the message. Please don't cause drama. Let's handle this like adults. Her throat closed. She typed a reply, erased it, typed again, erased again. Finally, she locked the phone and slipped it into her bag like it had burned her. That was when the tears came. They came hard and fast, blurring the streetlights into trembling stars. She crouched beside a closed shop, pressing her palm against her mouth to keep from making a sound. Crying loudly felt like begging the night for mercy, and she had learned that mercy was rarely given freely. She thought of the house help's bowed head, of Madame Gloria's satisfied silence, of Daniel's eyes when he told her to leave, not angry, not sad, just finished. Finished with her. When the tears finally slowed, exhaustion replaced them. She stood up, wiped her face with the back of her hand, and looked around like someone waking up in a strange place. She had no plan, no money beyond what was in her bag, no home. Only one name surfaced in her mind: Amara, her friend from university, the one who had cried at her wedding and told her, "If life ever turns against you, my door will not." Ifunanya started walking again, this time with direction. By the time she reached Amara's apartment, it was close to midnight. The building was quiet, most windows dark. She hesitated before knocking, suddenly ashamed of the hour, of her swollen eyes, of the mess her life had become. But pride was a luxury she could no longer afford. She knocked. The door opened slowly, then wider. Amara stood there in a wrapper, confusion melting into shock. "Ifunanya?" she gasped. "What happened? Are you okay?" Ifunanya tried to answer. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her body made the decision for her. She collapsed forward, and Amara caught her just in time. They didn't speak at first. Amara guided her inside, sat her down on the couch, brought water she didn't drink, touched her arm gently like one touches a wound that might scream if pressed too hard. Finally, Ifunanya whispered, "He sent me away." Amara's jaw tightened. "Daniel?" She nodded. "For good?" Another nod. Amara stood up abruptly, pacing the small living room. "That man is poison," she said fiercely. "After everything you did for him, after everything—" "Please," Ifunanya murmured, "I'm too tired." Amara stopped. She knelt in front of her friend, eyes softening. "You can stay here," she said without hesitation, "as long as you need." That was when Ifunanya cried again, this time differently. Not the violent sobs of shock, but the quiet, broken tears of someone who had finally reached a place where she could stop pretending. That night, sleep refused to come. She lay on Amara's bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the last months of her marriage like a cruel film that wouldn't stop. Every insult she had excused, every silence she had endured, every prayer she had whispered alone. At dawn, she felt something strange. Fear, yes. Pain, certainly. But beneath it all, a thin, unfamiliar thread of clarity. She had survived the worst night of her life, and she was still breathing. Days passed. Ifunanya stayed mostly indoors. She avoided mirrors, avoided church, avoided people who might ask questions she was not ready to answer. Daniel did not call again, but his absence spoke loudly. Friends she had once laughed with stopped checking in. Invitations disappeared. Calls went unanswered. It was as if divorce had rendered her contagious. Amara noticed. "They're cowards," she said one afternoon, setting food in front of Ifunanya. "People love you when you're winning. When you fall, they pretend they don't know your name." Ifunanya picked at the food without appetite. "Maybe I deserve it." Amara snapped her fingers sharply. "Don't say that again." Silence settled between them. Later that week, Amara brought it up carefully. "Ifunanya," she said, "have you ever actually gone for a full medical checkup?" Ifunanya frowned. "I told you, the doctor said I'm fine." "Yes," Amara replied, "but you went alone. You never got confirmation beyond that one visit." Ifunanya's stomach tightened. Daniel refused. "And now Daniel is gone," Amara said gently. "So what's stopping you?" The question lingered. "Fear," the answer whispered back. fear of confirmation, fear of finality, fear that the one thing she had built her self-worth around would collapse completely. But another voice spoke too, truth. 2 days later, they sat in a quiet private clinic across town. Ifunanya's hands trembled as forms were filled, blood drawn, scans performed. Every beep of a machine sounded like a countdown. When the doctor finally returned, Ifunanya could barely breathe. Dr. Ez smiled kindly. "Madam," he said, "your results are normal." The words took a second to register. "Normal?" Ifunanya echoed. "Yes, there is no medical reason you couldn't conceive." The room felt suddenly too small. "So, I wasn't—" Her voice cracked. "You were not the problem," the doctor said clearly. "If there was difficulty, your husband should have been tested as well." The sentence landed like a verdict delivered years too late. Ifunanya walked out of the clinic in a daze, Amara gripping her hand tightly. All those nights of self-hate, all those apologies for something she did not do, all those years of shrinking herself for nothing. She sat on a bench outside and laughed, then cried, then laughed again. Amara hugged her fiercely. "You hear that?" she said. "You were never broken." Ifunanya closed her eyes. For the first time since the gate closed behind her, something inside her shifted. Not joy, not yet, but anger. Clean, focused anger. Not the kind that screams, the kind that rebuilds. That night, lying in bed, Ifunanya stared at her hands. "They will not write my story for me anymore," she whispered into the dark. She didn't know how. She didn't know when. But she knew this: she would not disappear quietly. Chapter 4. Survival is a skill. The first lesson Ifunanya learned was this: healing does not arrive with comfort. It arrives with necessity. By the second week in Amara's apartment, reality had settled like dust. The tears came less often, not because the pain was gone, but because her body had learned it could not afford to break down every time a memory passed through her mind. Survival demanded structure. Money was the first problem. Amara never complained, but Ifunanya noticed everything. The way food portions were stretched, the way Amara hesitated before buying fuel, the way the electricity meter beeped like a warning more often than before. One evening, Ifunanya spoke. "I need to work." Amara looked up from folding clothes. "You just left a marriage that tried to erase you. You're allowed to breathe." "If I breathe too long," Ifunanya replied quietly, "I'll suffocate you instead." Amara didn't argue after that. The next morning, Ifunanya put on her simplest dress and walked the streets with copies of her resume tucked into a thin folder. She walked past offices that once welcomed her warmly when she was Mrs. Okori. Now, receptionists looked through her like glass. Some didn't even pretend. "We're not hiring." "Leave it there. We'll call you." No one called. By afternoon, the sun was punishing. Her feet ached. Her stomach growled, but pride refused to let her stop. She wasn't begging. She was reclaiming ground. At a small printing shop, the owner glanced at her resume and paused. "You used to manage accounts?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. He nodded. "I can't pay much." "I didn't ask how much," she said. That was how it started. 2 hours a day, sometimes 4, typing invoices, organizing receipts, counting money that was never hers. It wasn't dignity in the grand sense, but it was movement. And movement, she learned, was medicine. Nights were harder. Sleep brought memories she couldn't control. Daniel's voice, Madame Gloria's laughter, the sound of the gate closing behind her. On those nights, she sat on the edge of the bed and whispered reminders to herself. You are not broken. You are not finished. You are still here. One afternoon, while helping Amara prepare food for the next day, something stirred. You're fast, Amara said, watching her chop vegetables with practiced ease. You always were. Ifunanya shrugged. My mother taught me. You ever thought of cooking for money? Amara asked casually. The question landed heavier than expected. Cooking. It had always been her quiet joy, something she did without pressure, without judgment. I don't have capital, Ifunanya said. Amara smiled. We start small. They did. The next Saturday, they set up a tiny table near the roadside. Rice, beans, stew. Nothing fancy. Just food that tasted like effort and patience. The first customer hesitated. The second asked for a discount. The third came back the next day. By the end of the week, people were asking for her by name. Is the woman that cooks with feeling around? Ifunanya pretended not to hear, but something inside her warmed. She started waking up earlier, planning meals, calculating costs, writing things down in a notebook she guarded like a diary. She was building something slowly, quietly, without witnesses. Daniel's name faded from her daily thoughts, replaced by numbers, recipes, and plans. She still remembered him, but he no longer sat at the center of her mind like a king on a stolen throne. Then one evening, as she was closing the food stand, a man stopped. Your Jolliffe, he said, smiling, has no business being this good. She looked up. He wasn't flashy, no expensive watch, no loud confidence, just calm eyes and a presence that didn't demand attention. Thank you, she replied politely. I'm Emeka, he said. I work nearby. I'll be back tomorrow. He was, and the next day, and the day after that. He never asked personal questions, never lingered too long, never treated her like a curiosity. One evening, as she wiped down the table, he said gently, You don't talk much. She smiled faintly. I used to. He nodded like he understood more than she'd said. That night, lying in bed, Ifunanya realized something unsettling. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was learning. Learning how to stand without leaning on cruelty. Learning how to build without begging for permission. Learning how to exist without shrinking. The anger she'd felt at the clinic had transformed. It was no longer sharp, it was steady, and it whispered plans. She didn't know what the future looked like yet, but for the first time since the gate closed behind her, she felt something dangerous growing in her chest. Not hope, momentum. Chapter 5. The kind of love that doesn't shout. Ifunanya noticed the change before she admitted it. It wasn't dramatic, no sudden rush of joy or reckless optimism, just small things. The way mornings felt less heavy, the way she no longer flinched when her phone buzzed, the way she could walk past couples without feeling like something had been stolen from her chest. Routine had given her shelter. She woke before dawn now, cooked with muscle memory and care, opened the stand while the city yawned awake. The smell of rice and stew traveled farther than her name ever had, and people followed it like instinct. Emeka became part of the routine, always polite, always brief, always respectful of the invisible line she had drawn around herself. He never asked why she worked so hard, never asked where her husband was, never asked questions that felt like traps. That, more than anything, made her uneasy. One evening, rain started without warning. Customers scattered. Ifunanya rushed to cover the pots, hands moving fast, heart racing as thunder cracked overhead. Emeka appeared beside her, holding an umbrella. "Here," he said simply. She hesitated, then stepped under it. They stood close but not touching. The silence was easy. "You can close early," he said. "No one will blame you." She smiled faintly. "Food doesn't care about weather." He chuckled softly. "You're different." The words landed gently, but they carried weight. She stiffened. Different how? He considered. "You're careful, not cold, just measured, like someone who learned things the hard way." Her fingers tightened around the ladle. She expected pity. She got understanding. That night, she told Amara about him. "He doesn't look at me like I'm damaged," she said quietly. Amara smiled. "That's because you're not." Weeks passed. Emeka began staying a little longer, not hovering, just present. Sometimes they talked about food, sometimes about work, sometimes about nothing at all. One night, as they packed up, he said, "Can I ask you something personal?" Her chest tightened. "You can ask." "Will you tell me if I cross a line?" She nodded slowly. "Are you open to friendship?" The word surprised her. Not romance, not expectation. Friendship. "I am," she said carefully. "But I'm not good at pretending I'm okay when I'm not." "I'm not good at pretending either," he replied. That honesty unsettled her more than charm ever could. They started walking together sometimes. Short distances, public roads, nothing hidden. People noticed, and so did the city. One afternoon, while serving food, Ifunanya overheard whispers. "Isn't that Daniel Okori's ex-wife?" "That's her." "She seems fine." Fine. The word tasted strange. That night, Daniel's name returned to her thoughts uninvited. She hadn't seen him since the gate closed, hadn't heard his voice beyond a message she no longer reread. She wondered if he noticed her absence the way she had once noticed his presence. The thought passed, but it left a shadow. A few days later, Emeka didn't come. Then the next day, then the next. She told herself it meant nothing. People were allowed to leave. Still, when he returned on the fourth day, relief crept in before she could stop it. "Sorry," he said. "Work trip?" She nodded. "I didn't ask." "I know," he replied gently, "but I wanted you to know I didn't disappear." Something in her loosened. That evening, he stayed till sunset. "I should tell you something," he said quietly. Her stomach tightened. "I was married once." She froze. "My wife died," he continued. "Car accident, 3 years ago." Pain recognized pain. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He nodded. "I don't talk about it much, but I didn't want to build anything on silence." She swallowed hard. "I was married too," she said. "It ended badly." He didn't ask how. He didn't ask why. He just said, "Thank you for telling me." That night, Ifunanya lay awake, heart pounding. This wasn't love, not yet. But it was something that required courage, and courage frightened her, because courage meant risk. Across the city, Daniel Okori stood in his office staring at a spreadsheet he could not see. The numbers blurred. The silence pressed in. His phone buzzed. A message from a mutual friend. "I saw Ifunanya today. She looks well." Daniel stared at the screen. Well. The word irritated him. She wasn't supposed to be well. She was supposed to fade, to regret, to return quietly and apologize for daring to question him. He closed his fist around the phone. Something ugly stirred. Back at the apartment, Ifunanya stood at the window, watching the city lights blink on. She didn't know the past was watching her too. But she felt it, a faint pressure at the edge of her peace. And she knew, deep down, that what she was building would not remain unseen forever. Chapter 6. When Pride Begins to Bleed. Daniel Okori had always trusted numbers. Numbers did not lie. They rose when things were good, fell when mistakes were made, and obeyed those who knew how to control them. Numbers were clean, predictable. People, on the other hand, were messy. That was why the message unsettled him more than it should have. I saw Ifunanya today. She looks well. He read it again, slower this time, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less irritating. Well, the words stuck in his throat like a dry bone. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling of his office while the city glowed beneath him. He had imagined many versions of Ifunanya's life after she left his house. None of them included peace. She was supposed to struggle, to regret, to shrink. That was the balance he had counted on. The thought that she might be doing fine without him felt like theft. He dismissed it at first. People exaggerated. They always did. A woman could smile once and suddenly she was thriving. Appearances were cheap. Still, something itched. That evening, Daniel didn't go home. He drove instead. Slowly, past places he hadn't visited in years, old shortcuts, old memories. Without planning to, he found himself near the part of town where Ifunanya used to shop for vegetables, back when she still believed small domestic routines mattered. He told himself it was coincidence. Then he saw the food stand. He almost drove past it. Almost. The smell caught him first, familiar, annoyingly so, the kind of smell that carried memory with it, uninvited. He parked. From the car he watched. It took a moment to recognize her. She looked different, not thinner, not richer, just steadier. She moved with purpose, calling orders, collecting money, wiping the table with a cloth she folded neatly when she was done. There was no hesitation in her movements, no nervous scanning of faces. She looked like someone who belonged where she stood. Daniel's jaw tightened. A man stood near the stand, not flashy, not imposing, but present. Comfortable in a way Daniel hadn't been in a long time. They spoke briefly. The man smiled. Ifunanya smiled back. The sight hit Daniel like a slap. He didn't know what anger felt like anymore, but this was close. He watched until it became unbearable, then drove off abruptly, tires screaming louder than his thoughts. That night, Daniel drank more than usual. The house felt too large, too empty. His mother had gone to stay with a relative, leaving behind silence and the faint echo of old arguments. He sat alone, glass in hand, replaying the image of Ifunanya, smiling at another man. She moved on quickly, he told himself bitterly. The thought that she might have healed while he remained restless twisted something deep in his chest. Across the city, Ifunanya felt the shift before she understood it. The next day, customers behaved oddly. Some stared longer than necessary. Some smiled too knowingly. A woman she didn't recognize asked, "So, you sell food now?" Ifunanya answered politely, but unease settled in her stomach. That evening, Emeka noticed. "You're quieter today," he said gently. "I feel watched," she admitted. He frowned. "By who?" She shook her head. "I don't know, it's just a feeling." Emeka was silent for a moment, then said, "If anything ever makes you uncomfortable, you tell me." The words were simple. They scared her anyway. That night, Daniel called. The sound of her phone ringing with his name on the screen felt unreal, like a ghost knocking. She stared at it for a long time. Amara watched her from across the room. "You don't owe him anything." "I know," Ifunanya said softly. The phone stopped ringing, then rang again. She answered. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice steady despite the storm in her chest. Daniel exhaled sharply. "So it's true?" "What is?" she replied. "You're selling food on the roadside now?" The contempt was familiar. It no longer had teeth. "Yes," she said. "I am." A pause. "I didn't think you'd adjust so easily," he said. She almost laughed. "Is that why you called?" she asked. "To check if I'm miserable enough for your comfort?" Silence stretched. "I saw you," he admitted. "With him." Her fingers tightened around the phone. "You shouldn't be watching me." "I'm free to go where I want," he snapped. "And I'm free to live," she replied calmly. The line went quiet. Daniel felt something slip. "You always talk like this now," he said, "as if you were never mine." "I was never owned," she answered. "That was the problem." The words landed hard. He tried to regain ground. "You could have had more. Comfort. Security." "I had a house," she said. "I didn't have peace." Another silence. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. "You embarrassed me." She closed her eyes. "You embarrassed yourself," she said gently. "I just survived." She ended the call. Her hands were shaking, but her heart felt lighter. Emeka arrived shortly after. One look at her face, and he knew. "Do you want me to leave?" he asked quietly. "No," she said. "Stay." They sat in silence as the city darkened around them. Somewhere across town, Daniel Okori stood in his empty living room, phone clenched in his hand, realizing something he had never planned for. Ifunanya was no longer running from him, and that terrified him, because men like Daniel only felt powerful when someone else was afraid. Chapter 7. What the Light Reveals. Truth has a way of surfacing when lies grow tired. Daniel Okori discovered this on a Thursday morning when his name appeared where it was never supposed to appear. The boardroom was unusually quiet. 10 men sat around the long glass table, laptops open, coffee untouched. Normally, Daniel enjoyed this silence. It meant control, anticipation, authority. Today, it felt like a courtroom. One of the junior partners cleared his throat. "There's a situation." Daniel didn't look up. "Speak." The man hesitated, then pushed his tablet across the table. A headline glowed on the screen. Local businessman's divorce under scrutiny as ex-wife thrives against odds. Daniel's breath stalled. He snatched the tablet. The article was short, careful, dangerous. It didn't accuse, it suggested. It spoke about a woman abandoned without settlement, a man who remarried quickly, a quiet food vendor whose resilience had drawn attention online after a passerby posted a video of her stall, praising her strength. Strength. Daniel's jaw tightened as he scrolled. Comments poured in. So she built herself from nothing? Respect. Funny how men discard women, then act shocked when they survive. Power doesn't look so powerful anymore. He slammed the tablet onto the table. "This is rubbish," he snapped. "Who authorized this?" No one answered, because no one had. Across the city, Ifunanya found out from a customer. "You're famous," the woman said casually, holding her phone out. "Is this you?" Ifunanya froze. The video showed her serving food, hair wrapped simply, voice calm as she laughed with a customer. The caption read, "When life breaks you, you rebuild quietly." Her heart raced. She hadn't asked for attention, hadn't planned for exposure. Her safety had lived in anonymity. Amara read the comments over her shoulder. "They're on your side," she said softly. Ifunanya didn't feel victorious. She felt visible. That afternoon, strangers came to the stand not just to eat, but to look. Some smiled kindly. Some whispered. Some asked questions she didn't answer. Then Daniel arrived, not in secret, not watching from a distance. He walked straight toward the stand like a man reclaiming territory. Emeka saw him first. He stiffened. "Is that him?" Ifunanya nodded, pulse steady despite the heat rising in her chest. Daniel stopped a few feet away, eyes scanning the stand like it offended him. "So this is where you've been hiding," he said loudly. People nearby slowed. Phones lifted. Ifunanya met his gaze calmly. "I'm not hiding." "You made me look like a villain," he said through clenched teeth. "I didn't say anything," she replied. "Truth doesn't need narration." His voice dropped. "You could have stopped this." She gestured gently to the people around them. "They're seeing what you never bothered to look at." Daniel leaned in, anger barely contained. "You think this sympathy will last? People forget." She smiled faintly. "I don't need them to remember. I just need to live." A woman in the crowd spoke up. "Leave her alone." Another added, "She's working. What's your problem?" Daniel straightened, suddenly aware of eyes that weren't impressed. He took a step back. For the first time, the city wasn't listening to him. He turned and walked away, shoulders stiff, pride bleeding quietly through his tailored suit. That evening, the article spread. Radio hosts debated, blogs speculated, old acquaintances resurfaced with apologies that arrived too late. Daniel's fiancée called. "Is it true?" she asked, voice brittle. "Did you really send her away with nothing?" He hesitated. That pause said everything. By nightfall, Daniel sat alone again, staring at a city that no longer bowed. At the stand, Ifunanya closed early. Emeka walked her home without speaking. At her door, she finally said, "I don't want this to become a war." He nodded. "Then don't fight. Just keep standing." Inside, Ifunanya lay awake, listening to the city hum. She hadn't planned to be seen, but now that the light had found her, she understood something important. Visibility was dangerous, but so was silence. And this time, she would choose when to speak. Chapter 8. The Invitation. Daniel Okori did not believe in apologies. He believed in optics. By the time the headlines cooled and the blogs moved on to the next scandal, He had convinced himself that the damage was manageable. People were fickle. Attention drifted. If he stayed quiet long enough, the city would forget. But forgetting required cooperation. And Ifunanya was not cooperating simply by existing. Every day her face appeared somewhere new, not because she chased visibility, but because resilience had a way of attracting witnesses. A short radio mention, a reposted clip, a casual interview she declined that still ran her image beneath the segment. Quiet woman rebuilds life after divorce. Daniel read it with clenched teeth. He tried strategy first. A mutual friend called her. Daniel says he wants peace, the woman said carefully. He thinks you should talk. Ifunanya listened without interrupting. Then she replied, peace doesn't need a meeting. The friend sighed. You're making him look bad. Ifunanya smiled to herself after the call ended. That was the point they always missed. She was not trying to make him look anything. He was doing that on his own. Daniel's fiancée, Amelia, noticed the tension before she understood its source. He had become distracted, irritable. His answers shortened. His nights stretched longer at the office. One evening, she confronted him gently. You still think about her? She said. Daniel scoffed. Don't be ridiculous. Then why does her name change your posture? Amelia asked. The question lingered. Daniel didn't answer. That was when the idea arrived. Not suddenly, not dramatically. It grew slowly, the way cruel ideas often do, borrowing the language of civility, an invitation, public, polite, unavoidable. If Ifunanya refused, she would look bitter. If she accepted, she would be forced into his space, on his terms, under his roof of spectacle. The wedding was already being planned as an event. Influencers, business elites, cameras, speeches. If she came, she would be small again, or so he believed. He drafted the invitation himself, not sentimental, not apologetic, just formal enough to appear mature. When the envelope arrived at Amara's apartment, Ifunanya recognized his handwriting instantly. Her chest tightened. She didn't open it right away. She made tea first, let it steep, let her hand steady. Amara watched her quietly. You don't have to read it. I know, Ifunanya said, but I will. The card was thick, cream-colored, expensive. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Daniel Okori and Amelia Rhodes. No apology, no acknowledgement, just an assumption. She read it twice, then laughed, a small, incredulous sound that surprised even her. He thinks this is a trap, she said softly. Amara leaned forward. Is it? Yes, Ifunanya replied, but not for me. That night, she didn't sleep, not from fear, from calculation. She imagined the room, the faces, the murmurs, the moment Daniel would look at her and expect gratitude for being included. She imagined walking in unseen. Then she imagined walking in prepared. The next morning, she called Emeka. I need to tell you something, she said. He listened as she explained. When she finished, he asked one question. What do you want? She exhaled slowly. I want closure, on my terms. Then you should go, he said calmly. She paused. You're not worried? I trust you, he replied, and I trust the woman you've become. The trust felt heavier than love. Later that day, Daniel received her response. I will attend. He smiled. Across the city, Ifunanya stood before a mirror, studying herself. She didn't see a victim anymore. She saw a woman who had survived being erased, and she realized something Daniel had not considered. She wasn't attending the wedding to remember the past. She was attending to end it. Chapter 9. When she walked in, the venue was designed to impress. White flowers climbed pillars like obedient vines. Crystal chandeliers caught the afternoon sun and fractured it into soft, expensive light. Every surface shone with the careful polish of money meant to be admired. Daniel O'Corey stood near the altar, smiling the smile he had perfected over years of negotiation and applause. His suit fit him like a second skin. His posture said victory. Around him, guests murmured appreciatively, cameras flashed, and soft music floated through the air. This was his territory again. Amelia stood beside him, beautiful and tense in lace, her smile practiced, but thin. She glanced around the room too often, as if searching for something she could not name. Daniel noticed. "Relax," he whispered. "Everything is under control." She nodded, though something in her eyes disagreed. Outside, a black car pulled up quietly. There was no dramatic screech of brakes, no announcement, just a door opening. Ifunanya stepped out. She did not wear anything extravagant, no attempt to compete. Her dress was simple, tailored, elegant in a way that didn't beg for attention. Her hair was neatly styled, her face calm. She paused for a moment, feeling the ground beneath her feet. Then she walked. Inside the hall, the first head turned, then another, then a ripple. Whispers moved faster than music. "Is that her?" "She came. She looks composed." Ifunanya felt the weight of eyes, but she did not shrink. She did not rush. She walked as if she belonged to her own body again. Daniel saw her at the same moment Amelia did. The smile froze on his face. For a second, he forgot where he was. This was not the version of her he had imagined. Not small, not apologetic, not grateful for the invitation. She looked whole. Amelia followed his gaze. Understanding dawned slowly, painfully. "That's her," Amelia said quietly. Daniel swallowed. "It's nothing, just a guest." But Amelia was already watching more closely now, the way people watched when something important was about to happen. Ifunanya took a seat near the back. She did not seek the front. She did not hide either. She waited. The officiant cleared his throat. "We are gathered here today." A glass clinked sharply. Someone had dropped it. The sound cut through the room like a held breath finally released. Daniel's attention kept drifting backward no matter how hard he tried to anchor it forward. His mind ran through possibilities, rehearsed outcomes. She would sit quietly. She would leave early. She would not dare speak. That was the version he had prepared for. He had not prepared for stillness. Ifunanya sat with her hands folded neatly in her lap, eyes forward, expression unreadable. She did not look at Daniel. That unnerved him more than confrontation ever could. When the officiant asked if anyone had reason the union should not proceed, the silence felt heavier than tradition required. No one spoke. Ifunanya did not move. The ceremony continued, but something had shifted. Amelia's smile wavered. Her grip on Daniel's hand tightened, then loosened. She kept glancing back, curiosity turning into suspicion. Why is she so calm? Amelia wondered. Daniel's confidence began to sweat. During the reception, guests approached Ifunanya cautiously. "I admire your strength," one woman whispered. "You look well," another said, surprised. Ifunanya thanked them politely and excused herself. She was not here to collect sympathy. Daniel finally approached her near the edge of the hall, his expression controlled, voice low. "You made your point by coming," he said. "You can leave now." She met his eyes calmly. "I didn't come to make a point." "Then why are you here?" he demanded. "To witness the end," she replied softly. The words unsettled him. Before he could respond, Amelia stepped closer. "Daniel," she said quietly, "we need to talk." He looked at her, then back at Ifunanya, suddenly aware of how many eyes were watching again. The city had not stopped watching, and Ifunanya understood something clearly in that moment. She didn't need to speak loudly. She didn't need to accuse. Her presence was already rewriting the story. She stood up, not dramatically, just deliberately. Heads turned again. Daniel felt the floor tilt beneath his polished shoes, because he knew, suddenly and unmistakably, that whatever came next, he would not control it. Chapter 10. What Remains After. Ifunanya stood because standing felt honest. The room noticed immediately. Conversations faded, chairs creaked, 100 small movements stilled as one. The kind of silence that follows wasn't polite. It was instinctive, the way people grow quiet when they sense a moment that will be remembered. Daniel's heart hammered. This was not how he had imagined it. She was supposed to sit, to endure, to disappear quietly back into the margins of his day. Instead, she stood with the calm of someone who had already survived worse than judgment. "Ifunanya," Daniel said tightly, stepping closer, "this is not the place." She looked at him then, really looked at him. Once, that face had meant safety, authority, a future she had believed in with reckless faith. Now, it looked like what it was, a man desperately trying to hold together an image that no longer fit. "There's no wrong place for truth," she said, her voice steady, unamplified, yet somehow carrying. Amelia inhaled sharply. Guests leaned in without realizing they had. Daniel lowered his voice. "You don't need to do this." "I do," Ifunanya replied gently, "and so do you." She turned slightly, addressing the room without seeking permission. "I didn't come here to stop a wedding," she said. "I came because I was invited, and because for a long time my silence helped maintain a story that wasn't true." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Daniel's chest tightened. "This is unnecessary," he said loudly, hoping volume would restore control. Ifunanya didn't raise her voice to match him. "I was married to Daniel for 8 years, she continued. "During that time, I was blamed for things that were never investigated, punished for problems that were never shared, and sent away without dignity when I asked for honesty." Amelia's face drained of color. Daniel's fiancée took a step back, lace brushing against the marble floor like retreat. "Ifunanya," Amelia said quietly, "is this true?" Daniel opened his mouth. No sound came out. The pause answered the question better than words ever could. Amelia looked at him then, really looked, the way one does when they suddenly understand the cost of loving someone who never learned how to be accountable. "You told me she was bitter," Amelia whispered, "that she wanted to ruin you." Ifunanya met her eyes, not with anger, but clarity. "I wanted to be free." Amelia exhaled, a sound halfway between heartbreak and resolve. She removed her hand from Daniel's. Gasps followed. "I can't do this," Amelia said softly. "Not like this. Not with this hanging in the air." Daniel reached for her. "Amelia, wait. This is manipulation." She turned to him, eyes sharp with a pain that had found focus. "No, this is truth. And you are willing to humiliate someone to protect yourself." She looked back at Ifunanya. "I'm sorry." Ifunanya nodded once. "So am I." Amelia handed the bouquet to the officiant and walked away. The wedding unraveled quietly. No screaming, no chaos, just chairs shifting, guests standing, whispers thick with consequence. The kind of ending no one could spin. Daniel stood frozen, exposed in a room that no longer admired him. He turned to Ifunanya, voice breaking through his teeth. "Was this your plan?" She shook her head slowly. "No, my plan was to stop hiding." She stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "You thought inviting me here would shrink me," she said, "but you invited the truth instead." Then she turned and walked away. Not fast, not triumphant, just finished. Outside, the air felt lighter. Emeka was waiting by the car, concern etched into his face. "It's done," she said quietly. He opened the door without questions. As they drove away, the venue receded into something small and distant, like a memory that no longer had permission to hurt. Weeks later, the city moved on, as cities always do. Daniel's name appeared less often. Contracts paused. Invitations thinned. Power proved to be a fragile thing once admiration withdrew its consent. Ifunanya's life continued. The food stand grew into a small shop, then another. Her name became associated not with scandal, but consistency. Sometimes people recognized her, sometimes they didn't. Both felt like freedom. One evening, as she closed her shop and locked the door, Emeka stood beside her. "You ended a chapter," he said. She smiled. "No, I finished one." They walked on side by side into a future that didn't require silence to survive, and somewhere in the city that once watched her fall, Ifunanya lived loudly by living well. The end.